Hi, I'm Peter Loving, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about how you can improve the UI of your SaaS if you don't have a design team or even a freelance designer working with you. I speak with a lot of SaaS teams, particularly developers, who are looking to improve their UI, and they might not have time to do it, or they know they need to improve the UI, but it can get put off, and sometimes they just don't have the resources to do it at the present moment. So there are some things you can do to actually improve the UI if you don't have the resource ready and in place. I'm going to explain to you what those are. I'm going to explain what designers actually do to improve the aesthetic. And why is UI so important? Well, in my opinion, it's very important because it gives your users a perception of the quality of your product. In fact, a lot of users see the UI as the product itself. So whilst you're explaining to them the features, the value, the benefits of your SaaS, it's difficult to get past the perception of quality that users are going to have when they actually see the interface. That's where a lot of the judgment comes into it. To give you an example of the impact that a UI design can have on your SaaS, I'll talk about a client that I worked with in the last few years. This was a big enterprise SaaS, and their product had aged over a few years. They had new features brought in, and the UI had gotten a little dated and a little clunky in parts. And essentially, we worked together to work throughout the whole product, improving the UI and some UX elements in there too. As we did this, we were presenting UI designs, and some members of the sales team said, "Hey, this is great. You know, we'd love to have these designs in our sales decks so that when we're going out pitching and meeting prospects, we can show off the roadmap and the new designs." And a few months later, I came back and had a meeting with the CEO, and he explained to me how some of their sales processes, from them, they'd closed an account, an enterprise account that was worth £400,000 a year. And I couldn't believe that. It was such a huge project. And he said a big part of that came from improving the UI and the sales team, getting new energy and explaining the new direction, and it really contributed. Now, I'm not saying it's the one thing that enabled them to close it, but it definitely made a contribution there. And this is the impact UI can have, really good design can have. So let's look at what we actually do as product designers to achieve a high quality, impactful user interface. First of all, we define the project, define what we want to get out of it before we start designing. What is a successful outcome, and what are we going to do? In doing that we do some project planning, I should say. Just plan the resources, the time we're going to put into it, which parts of the product we're going to improve, and what a successful outcome will look like. Another thing we do is we organize. We organize and educate ourselves on the product. So we learn everything about it, we learn all the features, we learn our way around the architecture and the navigation of the software. And then we start to organize or group features in a logical way, organize user journeys, and just improve how improve on how they currently are. So, we might not be designing at this part, we're just kind of laying things out, we're structuring everything and getting a good overview. Another area that's really important is to simplify. You need to really simplify the product if you're going to make big design improvements. And this is because one of the main reasons we simplify things is so that the end user has a better experience. If there are too many features, too much messaging, too many icons, just too much visual clutter, it's a worse experience for the user, and they actually really have to think about how to use the product, what they need to do to perform a task that they need to perform. A lot of times I work on apps, I see that there are unnecessary things in there that we can remove and take out, and that enables us to improve the design, minimize everything, and that really does help to make a bigger impact on the aesthetic as well once we finish designing. Another thing we do is unify. So we unify the product. We make it all feel like one thing and with the same experience. Now, that's a matter of making everything consistent. So we make sure the color scheme is consistent and it ties in within the brand. Color scheme within different features or areas of the product relate and make sense to each other. Sometimes things are color coded based on the different features or different data that you're looking at. We make sure that the fonts, font sizing, font colors, the actual font typeface is all uniform. We make sure that the iconography has the same visual language, the same set, and it's presented in the same way everywhere across the app. And also the actual layout, so the grid layout, we make sure that that's all consistent too. Now that might depend on your development framework, but that's a really important part. You know, you don't want one page having a totally different structure and layout to other pages so that it almost looks like a different product. And surprisingly, that's something I see really often working on SaaS design. So once we've unified everything, brought it all up to date, brought it all with the same look and feel, we work on interactions. So when I talk about interactions here, I don't want to just say the actual, the hover states, when you click on something, what happens next. Also, a really important part that I notice is always lacking on projects that I work on is messaging, really strong messaging. So throughout user journeys, once a task is performed, the messages that are shown, even beforehand, so like tool tips, feedback on tasks, explanations of what to do and how to perform those tasks. I find that this is an area, a very common area in SaaS that can be lacking. So we work on general interactions and messaging throughout the product and improve those things. And then another area that is almost like an area that's overlaid on top of everything is finessing. We finesse the product as well. So we make sure that everything looks really sexy, actually. It's just kind of making sure that the color schemes look great. Any drop shadows, any effects, gradients in there. We consider CSS and JavaScript-based effects as well that we can communicate through development teams that are going to give that high quality perception and experience for the end user. So just to run through though, these are the kind of six things that we actually do as designers to improve a UI. We define what we're going to do. We organize the product in a way that makes sense. We simplify it. We unify, make everything consistent within the product so that it feels like the one and the same product with the same experience all the way through. We interact with users. We improve the interactions and messaging. And finally, finesse. We finesse the product to make sure that it has a really high quality aesthetic look and feel once we're finished. So those are the 6 things that you can work on some of those even without a designer, particularly messaging, making sure things are consistent, color schemes, simplifying areas, and that will make a huge impact on your UI. So good luck with that. I'd love to hear how you get on, and if you do need any help, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm always available to help, and I love working with SaaS companies to do just that. And in the meantime, remember to improve your product, get more users, and grow. Thank you.